The Transformation of Martin Burney. In the name of Sir Walter Raleigh's soothing plant, let us delve into the story of Martin Burney. The construction of the speedway along the west bank of the Harlem River was a grueling endeavor. Dennis Corrigan, the demanding subcontractor, ruled his crew of 22 men with an iron fist, driving them relentlessly. The men, most of whom were Irish, toiled on the small green island, their muscles straining under the weight of their labor. One of them, a man named Martin Burney, worked in the kitchen of the grub boat, a vessel serving as both their home and their source of sustenance. Corrigan, a man who exuded an air of ruthless efficiency, paid his men meager wages, ensuring they earned just enough to cover their food and tobacco. Many were in debt to him, bound by the unspoken contract of their dependence. Burney, a small man, all muscle and sinew, was the weakest of the group. The physical demands of the work were overwhelming for him, a burden that would have taxed a steam shovel. The labor was brutal, the air thick with the incessant hum of mosquitoes. The men, like children in a darkened room drawn to the comforting glow of a window, looked longingly towards the sun, their only respite from the relentless heat and toil. After their meager supper, they would huddle together on the riverbank, the acrid smoke of 23 pipes warding off the relentless mosquito swarms. This shared ritual, a defiant act against the elements, brought them a fleeting sense of camaraderie and solace. Each week, Burney's debt grew. Corrigan maintained a small stock of goods on the boat, which he sold to his men at exorbitant prices, ensuring he never lost a penny. Burney was a regular customer at the tobacco counter, purchasing a sack in the morning and another in the evening, his debt steadily mounting. Burney was an ardent smoker, his pipe a constant companion. Though rumors spread that he even ate his meals with a pipe in his mouth, this wasn't true. The little man wasn't dissatisfied with his life. He had enough to eat, plenty of tobacco, and a tyrant to curse. What more could an Irishman ask for? One morning, as Burney joined the other men for work, he stopped at the tobacco counter for his usual sack. "There's no more for you," Corrigan declared, his voice cold and unforgiving. "Your account's closed. You're a losing investment. Not even tobacco, my son. No more tobacco on credit. If you want to work and eat, do so, but your smoking days are over. My advice is to find a new job." "I have no tobacco to smoke in my pipe today, Mr. Corrigan," Burney said, bewildered, as if the very concept of running out of tobacco was unimaginable. "Earn it," Corrigan snapped, "and then buy it." Burney remained. He had no other job prospects. At first, he didn't realize how deeply ingrained tobacco had become in his life. It was his solace, his confidant, his companion. For 3 days he managed to fill his pipe from his fellow workers' sacks, but their generosity was short-lived. They told him, gruffly but with a hint of sympathy, that tobacco was a gift freely given between friends, but that beyond the immediate need, to borrow from a comrade's stash was a dangerous proposition, a risk to their bond. The realization hit Burney like a blow to the gut. The void left by the absence of tobacco was profound. He smoked the remains of his pipe, a hollow shell of its former glory, and trudged through his tasks, hauling barrowfuls of stones and dirt, feeling for the first time the weight of Adam's curse. Others deprived of a pleasure might find solace in alternative indulgences, but Burney had only 2 comforts: his pipe and the fervent hope that there would be no speedways to build on the other side of Jordan. At mealtimes, he let the other men enter the grub boat first, then crawled on his hands and knees, desperately searching the ground where they had sat, hoping to find a stray crumb of tobacco. Once, he snuck down to the riverbank, filling his pipe with dead willow leaves, only to spit the smoke-filled air in disgust and curse Corrigan with the most potent curse he knew, one that began with the first Corrigans born on Earth, and it extended to the Corrigans who would hear the trumpet of Gabriel. His hatred for Corrigan consumed him. The thought of murder, though hazy and fleeting, crept into his mind. He went 5 days without tobacco, a man who had smoked constantly, his nights incomplete without a few puffs under the covers. One day, a man stopped at the boat, informing the men of work available at the Bronx Park. They needed a large number of laborers to help with some improvements. After dinner, Burney walked 30 yards down the riverbank, away from the maddening smell of the other men's tobacco. He sat on a stone, his mind preoccupied. He was considering heading to the Bronx. At least he could earn money for tobacco there. But he hated the idea of leaving without getting even with Corrigan, the heartless overseer who had deprived him of his solace. Was there any way to punish him? Tony, a man of Italian descent who worked in the kitchen, approached softly, his steps muffled by the soft earth. He grinned at Burney, who, fueled by ethnic animosity and a disdain for civility, growled, "What do you want, you dago?" Tony, too, harbored a grievance, a simmering resentment against Corrigan that he was eager to share. "How you like a Mr. Corrigan?" he asked. "You think a him a nice a man?" "To hell with him," Burney spat. "May his liver turn to water, and his bones crack in the cold of his heart. May dog fennel grow upon his ancestors' graves, and his children's children be born blind. May whiskey turn to clabber in his mouth, and every time he sneezes, may he blister the soles of his feet. And the smoke of his pipe, may it make his eyes water, and the drops fall on the grass his cows eat, and poison the butter he spreads on his bread." While Tony might not have appreciated the beauty of Burney's curse, he understood its intention. With the confidence of a fellow conspirator, he sat beside Burney, his plot unveiled. It was simple. Every day after dinner, Corrigan took a nap in his bunk. During this time, the cook and his assistant, Tony, were expected to leave the boat to avoid disturbing the autocrat. The cook always used this time for a walk. Tony's plan was this. After Corrigan fell asleep, he and Burney would sever the mooring ropes that held the boat to the shore. Tony lacked the courage to do it alone. The boat, adrift in the swift current, would surely capsize against a nearby rock. "Come on, let's do it," Burney urged, his voice thick with anger. "If your back aches from the slap he gave you as much as my stomach aches for a puff of smoke, we can't cut those ropes fast enough." "All right," Tony agreed, "but better wait 'bout a 10-minute more. Give a Corrigan plenty time. Get good. Asleep." They waited, their resentment a tangible presence between them. The other men were out of sight, working around a bend in the road. Everything seemed to be falling into place, except, perhaps, for Corrigan's fate, if Tony hadn't decided to add a touch of theatricality to the plot. He was a man of dramatic flair, perhaps intuitively sensing the need to adhere to the conventions of villainy as prescribed by the stage. He pulled a long, beautiful, dark, and venomous cigar from his shirt pocket and offered it to Burney. "You like a smoke while we wait?" he asked, a hint of mischief in his voice. Burney grabbed the cigar, snapping off the end with a fierce bite. He brought it to his lips, as if reuniting with a long-lost lover. As the smoke began to fill his lungs, he sighed, a long, deep sigh of contentment, his gray-red mustache curling down over the cigar like an eagle's talons. The redness in his eyes slowly faded. He stared dreamily across the river, his gaze fixed on the distant hills. Time, for a moment, stood still. "'Bout time to go now," Tony said, breaking the silence. "That damn a Corrigan? He be in the river very quick." Burney emerged from his reverie with a grunt. He turned his head and stared at his accomplice with a mixture of surprise and outrage. He pulled the cigar from his mouth, but quickly brought it back, savoring the taste, and spoke, his words punctuated by puffs of acrid smoke. "What is it, you yellow heathen? Would you lay a trap against the enlightened races of the earth, you instigator of crimes? Would you dare persuade Martin Burney to stoop to the dirty tricks of a dago? Would you seek to murder your benefactor, the good man who gives you food and work? Take that, you pumpkin-colored assassin!" Burney's torrent of indignation, fueled by resentment and rediscovered pride, was accompanied by a swift kick. The toe of his shoe sent Tony tumbling from his perch. Tony scrambled to his feet and fled, his vendetta relegated back to the realm of unrealized ambitions. He ran, fear urging him away from the boat and into the unknown. Burney, chest puffed out with righteous indignation, watched his would-be co-conspirator disappear. Then he too departed, heading towards the Bronx, a trail of noxious smoke marking his path, a peace settling over his heart, driving the birds from the roadside into the dense thicket. The end. If you like the story, hit that like button and subscribe for more videos. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Was there anything that surprised you? Who's your favorite character in the story? I can't wait to hear your thoughts.